Hello and welcome to the What Turns You On podcast. I am Kaelen Marie, your host, and I am so excited to be here with Sister Goddess Lee Womack. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this gorgeous goddess here. She is a dynamic healer, a transformational coach, and an advocate for holistic well-being, specializing in health, wellness, and pleasure. We love that part.
Mhm.
Coaching to be specific. She's the founder of Blush with Pleasure and Twisted Lotus Transformations. Lee blends ancient wisdom and techniques to help her with her clients unlock their full potential. Now, here's something that I have learned about this amazing woman. Her intuition, her connection to spirit, her ability to channel what her clients are needing in the moment are profound. They are her gifts, her superpowers, and it is what she leads with in her life, in her relationships, in her business, in her coaching. And I don't even know what more to say other than this woman, who is the mother of 6 children, is doing life in the most beautiful and majestic way as she helps women step into their power. It is my privilege, my pleasure, and my honor to welcome Sister Goddess Lee. Welcome, my
What
love.
an amazing welcome. Thank you so much for having me here, Kaylin. It's
Mm,
a pleasure
I,
to be
like,
witnessed,
like
present.
I'm just a tingle all over. I'm just a tingle all over in my being, and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. We've been working on this for a hot minute, haven't we, my goddess?
Yeah, yes. With divine timing.
Yes. But isn't it always divine timing, right? As we choose to show up in those spaces, like I'm feeling this beautiful energy. So, my goddess, tell me, what turns you on?
I was thinking about this last night and someone asked me the same thing. And honestly, I feel like I wake up every day looking for turn on. um, One of the things that turns me on is having coffee first thing in the morning. I have a ritual where I use this special like mushroom blend and I only use organic heavy cream and like it's a whole thing. Excuse me. And just sitting with my coffee in the morning is like so pleasurable for me. Like that ritual of just sitting and enjoying what it is and putting some mindfulness. Excuse me, I've been ill lately. And just living in that like gratitude state, this the state of awareness, the state of just being really mindful and intentional in all of my choices, really from the first time that I wake up in the morning. It's like I don't look at my phone or get up before I'm like, okay, what kind of a woman do I want to be today? What kind of a mother? What kind of a coach do I want to be? And I envision that. And it gets me into the pleasure of, okay, I'm putting my feet on the ground, like walking in this ability to feel like what it is that I want to accomplish. So I say, like, everything turns me on.
Oh, yes. So I think this is really interesting and so beautiful. I feel like there's a lot of similarities. Let's take the word similar out, parallels in what you do as your morning startup and what I do. And this knowing and needing to ask, what does ritual mean to you? Because there is such deep pleasure in
Yeah.
ritual. Oh, and I'm like, oh, that's just like you just seem like you embody ritual in such a sacred and holy way. And I want to learn about that. Tell us about ritual and what it means in ceremony and what that means for you.
I feel like ritual can be made in like a daily task or a daily ongoing thing can be made into a life ritual by placing your attention and your awareness into it, being mindful of the practice itself. I guess I can just bring it back to my coffee. It's like I'm intentional and very aware about the kind of coffee, the time of day that I'm, putting it in, how I'm doing it, and the taking time in the preparation of it to enjoy like my five senses of the experience of preparing it for myself. And then also like the intention of like, I'm setting myself up for this moment to experience this drink fully in my pleasure for myself because I enjoy it. And I enjoy it because I'm putting love and effort into the consumption of the actual thing. But then as I'm doing it, what it leads to next is my meditation. So my daily meditation then leads to my awareness of, how I'm being called and asked by source, spirit, goddess, my spirit guides, whatever the work is that I need to accomplish for the day. And, so it's kind of like it's the kickstart to like then a bigger ritual that then leads to my ability to function in the work that I do. And so to me, that's like super sacred because it's one of the ways that I prepare my energy, my space, my vessel, my body to take a moment to step back from all of the things that I'll be asked to do for the day and just give something to myself. So in a way, that's a ritual for me. I think ritual like has to start with an intention and awareness to what you're bringing into the actual action of what you are going to hold.
Thank you. As I'm pondering here, my curiosity comes to how did you come to the space of ritual, of meditation, of the work that you do? And so I'm going to put that off because then my next question is, has pleasure always been integrated into that?
So having the awareness of the actual word pleasure
Mhm.
has not always been something that I identified with. But as I've been working in the realm of pleasure being a pillar, really for me, pleasure is mindfulness, intention,
Mhm.
and you have to be dedicated. It's a discipline to me. So, pleasure to me is a pillar of discipline in the lifestyle, in the life of someone who's seeking to live for their desires and fulfillment and sovereignty. And you have to be intentionally aware.
Mhm.
For me, I'm a sensual erotic blueprint is one of my things that kind of helps pigeonhole like who I am.
Mhm.
And so I could say that I didn't know that until recently. However, what I did know is that I am super turned on by all sensations. Like five sense awareness has always been something that just drops me right into a moment.
Mhm.
And I learned about that through mindfulness practice, which I learned through meditation, which I learned about meditation through curiosity. And I learned about, all of the things that I do because I was met with life circumstances that pushed me to expand my own self awareness. And through self inquiry and self awareness, I found tools that I fell in love with and decided to take up and embody to a point where I feel super comfortable sharing, teaching, and spreading all of that now. So, just being mindfully aware and living in pleasure as a pillar of like my discipline in daily life wasn't always something that I did,
Yeah.
but it's something that is definitely second nature. And not really putting a lot of oh, I need to do this because it's going to bring me pleasure. I'm like, I'm doing this because I live in pleasure. Like now it's more of what doesn't bring me pleasure, I just move away from. Not like I need to seek pleasure all the time. It's like I'm going to be in my pleasure. I'm going to be in my pleasure. I'm going to gravitate towards all of the things that bring me pleasure. If it doesn't bring me pleasure, oh, I'm going the other way. Kind of like guideposts, right? Like the guideposts, like a negative interaction. Maybe I want to go through it, right? Like, because we have ruptures and, sometimes there's things unexpected that come to us. Um, but coming back to pleasure being a pillar of your life discipline leads you to, I would say, a different perspective on how to handle those things.
Hey, you have just taught me something so powerful and so like deepened my understanding of pleasure because I'm in that space and stage where like I'm still like, okay, I gotta, I'm in making sure that I'm in my pleasure mode. And so I'm still working that, but now I get to see that as a pillar of discipline and then becoming that and that's translated for you into your sacred work that you do. Blush with pleasure and twisted lotus transformation. Tell me about these. Tell me what's the difference, what they are, and the secret work that you were called to do at this time, with discipline being this massive or pleasure being this massive discipline and pillar in your life.
What I love about Blush with Pleasure and the pleasure coaching is that all of those elements and tools and all of the modalities that I've learned can apply across the board into every single bit of my work.
Mm.
And now it's like just comes out, right? Like as I'm teaching yoga this morning to a group of women, I was hosting a divine feminine flow, which is really about embracing a moment for yourself. I was guided yesterday to do a meditation on grace and what does that look like. And what grace looks like to me is there are so many definitions to the word grace and how it's been carried on for centuries, you know, as a noun or as a verb. But what really the essence of grace to me is it's a powerful energetic force. It's a frequency of radical, unconditional loving acceptance. And so if we are able to unlock the grace that we have inside our heart for others, just breathing into that heart space, unlocking that unconditional loving acceptance for ourselves, we then are able to become observers of what does that mean? Like how can we love ourselves more gracefully? How can we offer ourselves grace? Whether it's through decision making, whether it's through, you know, just daily life. I feel like um lots of times we are not offering ourselves the amount of grace that we should. And we're very quick to give it to others. We're very quick to feel that other people are deserving of our grace, our mercy, but oftentimes we will just hold on to criticisms from our past over decisions that we've made or things that we have done that we wish we hadn't have done or decisions we need to make, right? And if you're allowed to just observe yourself with unconditional loving awareness, what would that look like? And asking yourself those questions and asking a group of women to ask themselves those questions. I don't know what their unconditional loving awareness looks like inside their heart or their mind, but I can tell you that it's given them space to answer those questions softly for themselves. And so I guess that's also what brings me to being in such pleasure. Like it brings me pleasure to share. And obviously I wouldn't have lots to share if I hadn't gone through a lot myself. So
Right? And and what is the goddess and the universe and everyone that's up there that we don't see doing? They're literally saying, "Oh, baby girls, you're gonna go through some really big shit
Mhm.
because you got really big shit to do." And you got to
Right.
be that embodiment of that knowledge. You got to literally be that walking embodiment, that book of knowledge, that book of wisdom, because where you're going is helping the masses.
Mhm.
And this is what you and I know very, very deeply that we are both called to, that the women that are in our program, this pleasure certification program, we are all called to work with the masses because it is time for women to rise up in their grace, in their sovereignty, in their pleasure, and make magic in this world. And so, of course, you and I, of course, there's going to be really horrible rupture, as we call it, that takes us to our core, that makes us go, do I really want to stay here on this planet? Because I'm really tired of this existence. I mean,
Mhm.
I have absolutely gone there.
Yeah,
And not too long ago, like within the past month. Okay.
right.
And it's like, but then we get up. What is that? Tell me, what is that for you that gets you back up? Aside of your kids, we know that our
I know,
children,
right? Yeah, that's always kind of been like the backbone of right, like so many of my trying times over the last 21 years of motherhood have been like, okay, well, that's fine that you feel like crying all day, but you have to go to work. You know,
right? And then
you
there's that.
have to do. So, yeah, there's no break for you. I think that's what makes our work so much more important,
Yeah.
really, is realizing that if no one was giving you a break, that it's time for you to give yourself one.
Oh, oh my gosh. There's just so much gold and so much juiciness in this conversation that you are bringing to this platform and this awareness, because everything literally is it's like I'm in this space of expansive turn on. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it just keeps expanding and it's getting bigger, and you and I being on this vibrational frequency, we are making a shift, right, of what is happening. How did you come upon Mama Gina and her work, and how long has it been?
So I think it was the summer of 2023.
Okay.
I read the book Pussy a Reclamation, which so many of us have. But honestly, what led me to looking for that book was understanding that I was being called by Goddess to connect with other women through the womb space and to gain a deeper understanding and knowledge for my own femininity. Um, as there's so many things changing in our exterior world right now that I feel like are dishonoring to women, dishonoring to feminists, a feminine woman,
Yeah.
however you identify as a feminine woman, to femininity, to the divine mother, to our mother earth, to anyone and everyone who identifies as feminine energy. There's a huge disruption going on right now with the denial of polarities, denial of the need for polarities in the energetics between men and women, or yin and yang.
Yeah.
And there is, I feel, um, there's work that's being done to deny that embodiment in humans. And I don't care how you identify your gender, every person on the planet, every human, everything that has living energy that's coursing through it has polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much power in polarity. It's what has made the world here, the earth here, every bit of creation is dependent on the pole of polarity. And the essence of that pole is the vital life source energy. And so stripping away the magnetism of polarity within inside of our human existence strips us of our ability to identify with creation.
Mm.
And the further that we are pulled away from how we identify with our own inner source, being and light, by stripping away that power from people and making it null and void,
Mm.
strips us away from oneness, connection, unity of self, self knowing, our ability to make choices for ourselves, disempowerment, disenfranchisement.
Mm.
Basically, it makes us so codependent on an outer source that we are no longer conscious choice makers, which
Yes.
is our God given right
Yeah.
as entities embodied in as human
Mm.
beings.
Yeah.
And I found myself being called by the goddess to unite with other women and to pick up these teachings to embody their empowerment, to show them the way back home to themselves,
Mm.
to give them tools to access their vital life source
Mm.
and to help them find their strength again.
Mm. Yes. Like, I just want to sit in that energy for just a moment, because it's very strong and palpable in this now moment as we're talking. Mm. Like, that's the truth of who we are.
Mhm. Yeah,
When we acknowledge that, then we, as you said, we have to be in our power. And I wonder if it's how many of us are afraid of our power.
I think that people don't know what their power is. So they're afraid of it because they don't know the beauty of the love that's within inside of themselves. And I also feel like people live a lot in fear of this power when they see it from other people because it's so intense and so powerful. They don't recognize it as, oh, you're reflecting back to me what is inside of me. And I now have permission to shine. They're like, whoa, who are you? What? Right? You know?
Why are you here and what are you doing? And you're freaking me out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn and go the other way because you're crazy and you're way too bright for me. Yeah. Yeah. But that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what is bubbling up through you that you feel you want to share in this now moment?
I just want to share that it's really a lot more simple than it seems. That it is easier to be at ease than we give ourselves the ability to feel ease. That the path of resistance comes often with inside of our attachments to things that are not true. And that when you allow someone else to witness you and hold space for you, there's profound healing that happens in connection with other human beings. And I know that it's very cliche to say, like, you're not alone.
Oh, that's the power of this sisterhood. That's the power of community. That's the power actually of humanity. And there's a shift. This shift is happening. I feel it. I'm seeing more evidence of it in the area that I live, where people are very intentionally creating this community space because COVID taught us something. For many of us, we needed to be sent to our rooms, right? And be alone and to digest. But it also proved that community, we've been taking it for granted.
Well, the ability to have community is what we took for granted. But I also feel like in the inward turning of all of that, we were forced to be inside of our houses and deal with relationships inside our own homes. Right. We were forced to exercise our interpersonal communications and actually have conversations with our kids and our spouses. And I feel like there were a lot of blessings that came from COVID as well. Like, I feel like having that time with my children is something that I never would have gotten because life had to slow down. Our work industries had to slow down. We were able to go inward and reflect. And then as people came back out of having that introspection, they got to pick and choose how they wanted their time, energy, and efforts to be dispersed. And I feel like it took people's time and energy and focus on the outward, inward. And then they decided, you know what? I don't want to give my power away like that anymore.
Mhm.
This feels too good.
Mhm.
So I can see that there was a lot of disruption that happened with COVID, but in my perspective, I think that it did a lot for healing humanity and for healing the planet.
I agree with that completely. Oh, Goddess, in this time that we have spent together, I am so grateful for how you consciously choose to show up as pleasure being your main pillar of discipline, being able to teach us coming back into our femininity is actually our sovereignty, and helping us remember that community is what we require, especially as we are steeping into these spaces of growth and expansion and coming out in more of the truth of who we really are. Is there any last thing in regards to maybe, I don't know, maybe a sexy, outrageous dare you want to invite our listeners to do? Something that will push some edges, give them a little bit of a taste of pleasure coaching. What do you got for us, girl? Show us what you got. Ooh.
Yes, actually. um, I think that a missing piece, when people think they know what pleasure means. Now, we did just kind of like go over the brief every single day. How can you find pleasure, right? But then there is like the true magic of invoking pleasure into your life. And whether you have a sexual partner or you are a single person, having a sexual ritual that you do to amplify your own sexual energy, to appreciate the temple that you have as your own body, and finding out how your body feels pleasure from a sexual standpoint. I dare you to investigate what that looks like, to investigate your own sensual sexual pleasure. And the reason that I feel like that's so strong is because so many of us are disembodied. We're walking around numb. We're walking around frozen. We're walking around not knowing what sensual touch feels like. We're walking around not realizing that we're stuck in hyper states of fight or flight and um, chronic stress, and what that's doing to our brain and our body and our digestive system and our heart and our ability to feel and give. And it's definitely affecting the ability for us to live in a world of reciprocity. So I encourage you to create a pleasure ritual for yourself with self-loving touch so that you can deprogram all of those things that have been happening in our world and become more aware of your own body temple and how it speaks to you.
I love that. I love that dare. It is,
Go play with
yes. Say that
your
again.
I dare you to go play with yourself.
Oh yeah, right. Well, you know what? When you're like, oh, go fuck yourself, you're like, okay, you know, yeah, you don't have to tell me twice.
Oh,
That is so beautiful. Oh my goddess, thank you. It has been such an honor and pleasure to have you here on the What Turns You On podcast. I'm
beautiful.
grateful. Mm.
Thank you.
And for thank you. And for those of you that are watching, if you haven't yet, hit the like button and the subscribe button. And let me tell you, there's more juiciness where this is coming from. And thank you for being here with us today. Ta-ta for now. Go fuck yourself.